Well, hello, I'm Doug Apple, back with another special interview for you today. And here's something that you see in the headlines these days: government shutdown. Well, what's that all about? And there is a healthcare component to this, and with that in mind, we're turning to our friend in the Washington, D.C. area, Mr. Mike Sharman, an attorney. He's the legal counsel for Share Healthcare, the nonprofit healthcare sharing ministry, which we'll talk about later. But Mike, we're going to turn to you now. What does it mean when the federal government shuts down? Some people, like me, just see the headlines, but maybe we don't dive very deep into it. Some people cheer when the government shuts down. Others think it's terrible. Well, what's your take on it? And then especially, how does healthcare fit into this last shutdown?
Well, thanks, Doug, for having us discuss this. Now, we don't know. This airs over time, and then it goes up on the podcast. So perhaps by the time some people are hearing this, the quote shutdown will be over. So why are we discussing it on a broadcast that might be heard after it's over? Well, because what's really at stake is truth. What is the truth of what's being discussed? What is the truth of both sides' discussions? What's the truth about healthcare? The very title, shutdown, government shutdown, is a misnomer. That is, it's inaccurate. The government is not shut down. If you were to go to the Capitol today and you wanted to be able to view it, well, the Capitol Hill police are going to be there. They may not have some of the visitor centers open, but they'll be there. The Capitol will be there. They'll be operating. The same with the Supreme Court, same with the Library of Congress. If you wanted to go to a national park, the visitor center, the gift shops will be open because they're a private vendor. But guaranteed, the police, the uniformed law enforcement for those parks will be there. The air traffic controllers are operating. TSA is operating. So what has been cut out is what's known as the non-essential. That doesn't mean some of them aren't important. Many of them are very important, those non-essential. But it's discretionary. That is, it doesn't have to be done immediately. Filings of some things don't have to be reviewed immediately. If somebody was wanting to do, I was going to say if somebody wanted to do a filing for a nonprofit, they wouldn't be able to do that immediately. But hey, that's wrong, because the IRS is not part of the shutdown because it has funding that can fund it through 2031.
Wow.
Right. So shutdown is a misnomer. It's not. Most people will not feel an impact today, a week, 2 weeks into this, if there isn't an agreement as to what to do about it. And why do I say that this is about truth? Well, the Democrats are very loudly shouting this is all about health care for the poor, or making sure those on lower income get health care. I mean, that is what they're talking about. I mean, have you really heard any other major reason why the Democrats are saying that they have to shut down government?
No,
that's it. And so what is it that they're talking about? Well, they're talking about, for one thing, for actual Americans, those who are, green card holders, true legal residents and citizens. What they're talking about is the enhanced subsidies for the Affordable Care Act. Now, we had the big, beautiful bill, which was voted on and passed. And part of that allowed the enhanced subsidies, that is, more money than other people get, which was created during COVID. It allowed that to expire as it was voted upon to do. So when those enhanced subsidies were created during the COVID era, they were set to expire at the end of this year. In the debate for the big, beautiful bill, some people wanted those subsidies to continue. That did not win. So the law as written, the law as passed, the law as debated, is going to occur. Those enhanced subsidies will expire at the end of this year. So what are those enhanced subsidies that actually affect Americans? Well, if you are at the poverty level, you get free health care. That's what the Affordable Care Act says. You get free health care. And the COVID changes did not change that. It, in fact, more firmly established that. If you're at 200% of the poverty line, you get free health care. So what were the enhanced subsidies that are allowed to be are being allowed to expire? Well, that was if you are at 400% of the poverty level. And I'm laughing because this is kind of ridiculous that we would even do this. But 4 times the poverty level. If your family is a family of 4 and you make $128,600, that's 4 times the poverty level for a family of 4. Then you would be getting an enhanced subsidy. You would get your premium to be on that healthcare exchange, or for your insurance, you would get money, and your insurer would perhaps get money depending on which way that goes into it. But those enhanced subsidies, that's who it's for. The people who are making, for a family of 4, $128,600. When that's what the Democrats are fighting for. And when we actually look at, well, what is this? It's socialism at its most perfect expression. You're taking from those wealthier than $128,600 for a family of 4 per year and taking their taxes, or our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren's money. We're taking their taxes to pay for these people that some politicians thought needed to have it all paid for, even though they were making $128,600 per year. And so how much is that impact that the Democrats are asking to be put back in? Because what they're asking to do is change the COVID-era law, change the law that was just passed this year, and bring that back. Well, how much would that cost? That'd be, for the next 10 years, that's $350 billion. So, in other words, $35 billion per year. Well, that's what they're talking about for Americans. Now, how does that strike you, Doug? Should we or should we not, as taxpayers, pay for the health care subsidy, which then goes to companies, insurers? Should we pay for them for a family of 4 of $128,600?
Well, since I'm an advocate of smaller government, I would think that we should not do that.
Or if you were an economist, you would think we should not do that. Because what happens when you have a subsidized anything?
Well, it starts messing with the free market and incentive.
And it increases the cost for everybody.
Right.
So not only is it that $350 billion for 10 years, $35 billion per year that they're asking to just dump into the marketplace. What that really means is there's more of a wave effect, more of a ripple effect throughout the entire insurance economy. Everybody's health care insurance will be more expensive because of that subsidy that's being dumped into the market. We just know that. So that's one of the things they're fighting for. Because you often will hear the Democrats, when they get in front of the microphone, they're saying, well, we're fighting for health care for Americans. Okay, well, that's the part for Americans. What about for the part that aren't Americans? Does the name Kilmar Abrego Garcia ring a bell to you, Doug?
Not really.
Okay, well, he's the guy that was supposedly mistakenly deported by the Trump administration when they first began the thrust towards deportation of illegal immigrants. Well, I've always thought that mistakenly deported was a misnomer because he had been ordered to be deported, I think, back in 2019 or a long time ago. 2019. And he admitted he was in the nation illegally, but he was afraid of going back to his El Salvadorian country because he thought maybe the gangs might get him because he's in a different gang. So anyway, that's Kilmar Abrego Garcia. A big deal up here in the D.C. news market. Well, he's been held in various detention facilities since then. Courts have been going over and over and over, but he's eligible for the subsidies that the Democrats are fighting for, because we just mentioned the part that they're fighting for Americans, which is Americans that are 4 times the poverty rate, $128,600 for a family of 4. But they're also fighting for illegal or subsidies for illegal immigrants. There's quite a number of ways in which our current laws had been being used so that illegal immigrants can get their medical care paid for under Medicare or Medicaid, even though an earlier law had said supposedly nobody here legally can get it. Well, there were a number of loopholes that had been put in over the years that the big, beautiful bill wiped out. And it wiped it out to the tune of about $200 billion is how much those expenses would have been. So there was the Working Families Tax Credit Act that was focused on taking those out. That's part of the big, beautiful bill. And it said that only citizens could get those, and those that have permanent green cards, not illegal, specifically took that out. And that was saving $102 billion on that loophole. Then there was the enhanced funding for emergency care provided to illegal immigrants. That was about $28.2 billion that had been paid out to the states by the federal government because of how they would write things to allow illegals to have their Medicaid or Medicare paid for, and then the federal government would have to reimburse the states. Then there was the loophole called the California loophole we've talked about before, where through a tax machination, a state tax machination, where it was essentially a behind-the-back payment to hospitals that California would tax hospitals at a higher rate on their Medicaid payments, et cetera, and then get the money back from the federal government and then give it back to them, back to the healthcare providers to pay for care for illegals. Well, wiping out that loophole would save $34.6 billion. Now, these are all things that have been put into these protections. Wiping out those loopholes have been put into the big, beautiful bill, and that's what the Democrats are trying to get back. We mentioned before about how if somebody was at poverty level, they would have all of their health care paid for. It just was paid for. They wouldn't get a subsidy, which is a check they would get, because they're getting all their health care paid for. And so in the Obamacare bill, the original Obamacare bill, it said if you're below the poverty line and you're getting all your health care paid for, you can't also get a subsidy. Well, this old act that the big, beautiful bill had wiped out, the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act, which is a definite misnomer, had allowed illegal immigrants and non-citizens to get subsidies even though they were under the poverty level and getting their health care entirely paid for.
Wow.
That got wiped out under the big, beautiful bill, and that would save $27.3 billion. Now, these are the things that the Democrats are fighting to get put back into law. And none of us that are common sense thinkers or taxpayers want that.
Yeah, so now, Mike, address this from the angle of the compassionate Christian. Mm-hmm. And I run into this when I have conversations about the minimum wage, because, on a surface level only, the higher the minimum wage, well, that's the nicer we're being to people. And in this case, you could say, well, the higher the subsidies, the nicer we're being to people. So talk about why, as you go below the surface, it actually isn't nice.
Well, that's the difference between charity and socialism. Charity is you individually and your church, your particular church collectively, want to help somebody, an individual or people in your community, and you gather your own money and you do it. That's charity. Socialism is when the government says, we decide that this particular group needs your money more than you do, and we're taking your money from you by taxation. And if you don't pay that tax, we ultimately will come and arrest you and put you in prison. That's the difference. Coerced giving, a forced compulsory taking by the government versus a charitable giving done out of love. There's a huge difference. When you are individually giving money to somebody, and I'm sure you have, we have, and you probably know a lot of other people who have too, given anonymously to someone, an individual that you hear about in your church or out in the community, and you want to help them, but you don't need to take credit for it, or you don't want to take credit for it. Well, that's prompted by just a desire to help of that Christ sacrificial love that he puts into us. That's good. And you are able to know about that person's circumstance and deal with it. And you also maybe are in the position then of helping them get out of whatever circumstance they're in. Plus, you're going to be praying about it. Then whether it's anonymous or not, and your church takes up a collection or has an ongoing benevolent program to help a family or a person or an area in the community that needs help, a situational area or even literally a geographic area, well, then that local church can see what the need is, can see who those people are. They're going to get actively involved with it, and they're going to pray about it. It's not even an apples, oranges. It's more like apples and alligators difference. Charity is not socialism. Socialism is not charity. They're just entirely different.
I guess the only other thing they would say is, well, the government has tons of money, and those billionaires have tons of money. They can afford it.
Well, the government has no money. The government has only taken our taxpayer money. That's it. There is no government money. The government cannot generate money on its own, and it doesn't. The billionaires do contribute. The billionaires contribute disproportionate amount of the money that gets in, not only from their individual income, but because of the work that they create. When you're a town, a city, or a community that wants to bring in economic development, it's not normally that they're just those 10 or 15 jobs that you're looking to bring in. It's the ripple effect of it. So the ripple effect of a billionaire and what he is doing and what he is paying for the various businesses, that has a huge ripple effect that helps the community. And plus, they're looking at it from a market perspective. Hopefully they are. What's the best way that I can make sure this income flow continues? Well, I have to be meeting the need of the people. When that doesn't work, it doesn't work. When we're subsidizing, when we're making it easier for people here who have come here illegally, when we've made it easier for them to come here illegally and drawn that magnet, as opposed to having them try to figure out what they need to do in their own nation, then look at how many people's lives have been lost trying to get here. Look at how many people have been robbed or raped coming here. We have a human trafficking problem within the United States because of people trying to pay off their debt to the coyotes that brought them over, the cartels that paid the coyote that brought the people over. And people are in enforced slavery here in the United States because of that. That's not kindness. So making it easier for them to be here is one of the draws, but that's not kind. With the minimum wage, with a higher than minimum wage, the fewer people that can get employed. And so they become dependent or homeless. Either dependent on so much of the safety net protocols we have, which there's nothing good about dependency. That erodes a person, erodes the family, erodes the community. So we really want to look beyond the linoleum. We want to look beyond the slick paper at the top of whatever it is that is covering over a problem. And we actually want to look at the problem and see what's created it and how can we actually fix it at the local level. Individual level, what can I do? Family level, what can my family do? Church level, what can my church do? Community level, what can my community do? When you've done that, You don't have to have a federal government or state government do much of anything other than keep the roads and get the mail going.
Yeah. So just different worldviews and government views. And we're talking with Mike Sharman. You're the legal counsel for Share Healthcare. So go ahead and talk a little bit about how Share Healthcare fits into this conversation.
Well, I think it's a perfect example of if we do things in a small way, avoiding big business, big government, big anything, we can have a big impact on the individual and the individual family. And here's why. Here's the example. So Share Healthcare is a 501c3 nonprofit. It's a Christian ministry. The specific ministry it has is not an all-reaching one. It's very specific. How can we, Share Healthcare, help share the necessary medical expenses of our Christian members? How can we do that? That's our narrow mission field. And the members each send in their monthly amount to Share, and that's $149 for a single, $249 for a couple, and $349 for a family of four. So we compare that to the norm, which is an employer-provided insurance premium. The average of that across the nation is $2,600 per month, $2,600 per month for a family of four, versus our $349 a month for a family of four. That, in a nutshell, shows the difference between charity and socialism, between the free market being able to work because our members get to choose what doctor they want. They aren't forced into a network. That doctor gets to choose what sort of medical care he wants to provide for them. That doctor is not forced by the insurer or by government because there's no government involved in a healthcare sharing ministry like Share Healthcare. That doctor gets to choose what care to give. And then we have the spiritual element that our members are praying for themselves. They're praying for their family. Their local church is praying for them. And then we, as a body, we Share Healthcare, is praying for them. So that reduces cost right there. We're $349 for a family of four versus $2,600 for a family of four. Right there is probably the best example of what we've been talking about through this time.
Well, if people want more information about Share Healthcare, what do they need to do?
Well, they can go to sharehealthcare.com, sharehealthcare.com. Right, browse through that, write up your questions, and then call 1-844-SHARE-HC. 1-844-SHARE-HC. And a call during business hours because our workers like to go home to their family. Call during business hours, ask them the question. You're going to get a real live human, and they'll give you the answers that you want.
All right, that's sharehealthcare.com or call 1-844-SHARE-HC. And I'll remind you, if you hear these interviews over the radio and you'd like to share them with other people, you can go to the podcast. Just look up Share Healthcare on your favorite podcast app, and you can find this and all of our previous recordings and see what else we've talked about and share them with others if you want. That's Mike Sharman, and for Wave 94, I'm Doug Apple.